So the ANC wants the presidency to have greater powers to drive government policy and allocate the budget. With resources very scarce, detractors are arguing it's a counterintuitive move to the current legal narrative. It says the president has too much power. Land redistribution, another bed of contention, with President Zuma playing a populist mantra suggesting the constitution should be changed to allow for expropriation without compensation. The party, though, says the state should pay fair compensation for the land it acquires. It's massively confusing right now in South Africa. This is the MoneyMakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight we discuss the real state of the republic with political economist and author Moeletsi Mbeki in studio. I mean, we were chatting the other day about the state of the African continent and how many economies have got themselves into trouble. The real state of the nation, as far as you're concerned, what is the state of play?
Well, I'm not pessimistic about South Africa. I know we have problems, and I think most South Africans know what our problems are. One of our problems clearly is an incompetent government, but we have an option. We can vote for it or vote against it, and people started voting against it. That's why last year the ANC lost, couldn't get majority in all the Gauteng metros. Now, when a ruling party, loses all the metros in the heart of its economic region, then the people have spoken and they have told them what they think of it.
The people have spoken. We've seen this most extraordinary awakening of political consciousness during 2016. It was one of the most incredible things to see as the wheels felt they were coming off this time last year. South Africans stood up for themselves and said, no, hold on a second, there are other options, and they exercised that democratic right. Why does that message not seem to be filtering through the layers of the top layers of the ANC? Or maybe parts of the ANC are seeing it and others aren't.
It actually has filtered through to every part of the ANC. The difficulty is the ANC doesn't know what to do, or if I can say, you can't expect the leopard to change its spots. The ANC has its policies which it has been pursuing for the last 23 years, and it is still pursuing those policies. But those policies are not working for the great majority of South Africans, which is why we have the highest unemployment in the world. I don't think there's a country in the world that has higher unemployment than South Africa. Now, the ANC thought that the people love it because of Nelson Mandela, and therefore forever they will always vote for it. Well, it is now showing, the people are showing that, yes, they admired Mandela and what Mandela did for the country, but the ANC of today is not the ANC of Mandela, and they are voting against it.
But it is an extraordinary turn of events. I mean, even people who couldn't find them in their souls to vote elsewhere, there's certainly many people wouldn't have voted for the Democratic Alliance, many people couldn't have voted for the EFF, they chose to stay away, which implies that there is still a chance for the ANC to win the 2019 election, or has that boat sailed?
No, that boat has sailed. The people staying away will stay away if they feel that's how they are expressing themselves. So they will continue to stay away if they feel they can't vote for the opposition, but they also can't bring themselves to vote for the ANC. So that boat has sailed. The reality is a big part of the South African voting population is starting to turn away from the ANC. If you take Nelson Mandela Bay, I mean, it's like Mecca to the Muslims. For the ANC, it is the Mecca.
This is where you grew up. It is where your father cut his teeth. It's where Nelson Mandela cut his political teeth. It's where Walter Sisulu cut his political teeth. This is the heartland of the ANC, founded in the Eastern Cape, for goodness sake, in 1913?
1912.
1912, beg your pardon. Suddenly my history let me down. But the roots, the origins of the great movement that is the ANC, or was the ANC, are there. And the people of the Eastern Cape, at least certainly the urban population of the Eastern Cape, have said, we don't like this anymore. And Athol Trollip is going to take every opportunity to prove the point that he can govern better than his predecessors.
Well, I would, where he has been given a chance by the people in the Eastern Cape and Nelson Mandela Bay to show that he can help to solve their problems, instead of what the ANC was doing, which was really solving its own problems, not the problems of the people who elected it to run the Nelson Mandela Bay Metropolitan.
You seem quite comfortable, from an objective perspective, of talking about the demise of the ANC. Doesn't it tug at your heartstrings, or are you over that?
You know, my family, I think, going back to my grandparents, we invested in the ANC. My grandfather was one of the people who put the money in 1908 to build Fort Hare University, which is where your Nelson Mandelas were studied, and your Oliver Tambo's. So I'm very proud of what my family has contributed. And we, of course, my brother was there, my mother, all my family has been involved in building the ANC, in supporting the ANC. But the ANC has turned against us. It has turned, the current leadership is turning against the people of South Africa.
Well, it's turning against the very core principles of the ANC.
Yes, it is turning against the core principles of the ANC.
But also, I think it may be unfair to blanket the entire ANC like that. And this is where the split in the ANC is really interesting. I watched Gwede Mantashe continually fighting a retreating rearguard action as he tries to figure out who's on side and who's not, and who is still loyal to the principles of the ANC of old, and who is part of a new faction seeking for rent-seeking and plunder. And I think even he's finding it hard to read who stands where.
Well, but he is part of the top leadership of the ANC. If he's unhappy with the top leadership, he can resign. He has that option.
Is that in the best interest of the country?
Well, yes, of course. If he's going to speak out and say, I'm against corruption, I'm against the incompetence that I'm seeing with the management of these grants, the social grants for poor people, and I'm walking out of this leadership, it is in the interest of the country. But he's sitting there reading the constitution of the ANC and doing nothing, and contemplating his navel, if I can put it that way.
I forget exactly when you wrote it, but 3 or 4 years ago, one of your most memorable opinion pieces in Business Day was, by 2019, South Africa runs out of money, the social grant system fails, and we hit our own Arab Spring.
I thought it was going to be in 2020, but I never factored in the incompetence of certain ministers and corruption. I was looking at the broad economic issues, like our trade with China and which way the Chinese economy was going and so on. But this one, I must say, I never looked at it, but it is proving to be far more potent than our broader trade issues.
You're talking about that potency, but what is it about the impotence of the ANC to not resolve this problem?
Well, the ANC leadership, at the end of the day, Bruce, is sitting pretty. They are the major beneficiaries of South Africa, of South Africa's democracy. They are one of the major beneficiaries. President Zuma, I read somewhere, he's amongst the top 5 best paid heads of state in the world, not just in Africa, in the world.
In dollar terms.
Well, yes. So the ANC leadership is sitting pretty. But at the base of that machine is the massive unemployment that we see in this country, the huge poverty that we see in this country, the deindustrialization that we see, the lack of investment in our mining sector, in our agricultural sector. And the ANC is not willing, the ANC leadership, to make the necessary sacrifice to say, cut back the gravy train, we must invest in agriculture, we must build irrigation schemes, we must deal with the education system properly so that there is a future for young people in South Africa.
But what I don't understand is, if you're standing on the deck of the Titanic and the ship is headed for the iceberg, you may think you're in first class and have got first access to the lifeboat, but the lifeboat may leave without you, as it did on the Titanic, with many first-class passengers left on board to die. I mean, in a dysfunctional environment, you can be as wealthy as you like. If it's dysfunctional, it's dysfunctional. You go down with the ship.
You go down with the ship. And this is what the ANC, the councillors, for example, the councillors who lost their jobs in the metros that were lost, what are they doing? They are now discovering that actually they are being thrown overboard by their leaders. And that is the consequence of, they are now facing the sharks in the open ocean.
What I found is quite an interesting strategic play by Herman Mashaba and other of the new mayors in South Africa is how many of the old guard they've kept on, people who have been pretty good at their jobs and perhaps just need a better moral compass or need better discipline and management, saying, hey, you were doing a fine job as XYZ, keep your job, it's fine. And it's quite a smart strategic play.
No, but security of jobs for qualified people who are competent, who got there through normal competition, yes. There is no reason to get rid of them. They are entitled to keep the job if that's how they got there. But of course, if it came in through the back door, through political connections, people have no competence, then they should remove them.
Paint a picture for me. How does this play out in December this year? How does it play out come 2019? What are the scenarios?
Come December this year, I think there is going to be a mega fight in the ANC about who. Zuma obviously wants his former wife to lead, and he is running, I must say, a tough campaign to make sure that she was putting together the constituency that will elect it. So, and that constituency, at the heart of it, as you know, are the KwaZulu-Natal Regional ANC, Free State, Mpumalanga, and Northwest, and then the Women's League and the Youth League. So those are the constituencies that President Zuma is mobilizing. Now he's gone to the Eastern Cape, as we saw during the last weekend, for the elections in Nelson Mandela, the ANC elections in Nelson Mandela. So he's building up his constituency. So those who are trying to get rid of him, like Cyril Ramaphosa, they have a huge fight in their hands. And I don't think they have the stamina, to tell you the honest truth, to face down Jacob Zuma. Zuma has got the energy, he has got the conviction in what he's doing, he's got the passion, misguided, according to most people, but he's got all those things.
And almost a self-fulfilling prophecy then, that if we continue down the steady path that the ANC seems to be driving itself down, that 2019 leads to new opportunities, perhaps, for political parties.
Oh, absolutely. You see, if Jacob Zuma gets his way with his ex-wife in December and gets elected president of the ANC, that will almost certainly doom the ANC in the 2019 elections.
Thank you very much, Moeletsi Mbeki, political economist, author Moeletsi Mbeki, giving us his perspective on the state of the nation. Other political party movements, machinations and policy discussions on future Moneymakers. Right now, if you can, sleep well. Good night.